Welcome to the Parody, where we tally up the victims in our favorite movies. I'm Chelsea Rose, and today we're looking at Blind Justice, released in 2018. Being released before Hostage, it is the second film chronologically in Jason Stone's own arc. While sure he was a big focus in Hostage, he becomes the main focus this time around. After he's blinded by an explosion on the docks that kills the rest of his precinct, he has to go solo to find who did this. However, on the way, he'll find out more about the perpetrator and himself. Even though, along with the Renegade, it serves as a midpoint between Hostage and the Injustice duology, I prefer it over all of them. As the only one of them that runs about an hour and 30 minutes, it has a really fast pace to it. However, that doesn't stop the characters from developing more in the process. However, it also serves as a way to develop Mystic, another character from the first film that was relatively more on the side. While in Hostage she got a bit of depth, in this film it dives right into all that. It makes her feel like more as the natural person rather than just an asset that the mob could use. Which, to be fair, is exactly what they were doing. It doesn't feel as slick as Hostage, however, and that's probably just because it wasn't directed by Wholesale Ryan 56. However, I don't really mind that since the film runs such a compelling narrative that makes it better than Hostage. I say that, but I still need to stress that Hostage still has a great narrative and is still a great movie in general. And to be fair to Hostage, I still think critically it's the best one out of the entire arc. However, Hostage was billed as more of a slow burn crime thriller. It more or less shows the bond between two dudes who get caught up in an increasingly insane situation. They grow more as friends, and honestly, it's a more tragic tale. It packs an extremely big punch and it throws it at you towards the end. However, Blind Justice is definitely more of a steady film. I'll also say it's kind of functionally the same as Hostage in some respects. Both films have a similar trait of two people bonding closer because of shared experiences. However, in Blind Justice, it doesn't really drag that out for as long as it does in Hostage. At 95 minutes, this has a way faster pace, which I honestly prefer quite just a little bit. With the main characters, it's more of a cat and mouse flick in the first half. Both don't know the other party, but they're both tasked with stopping one another from their goals. However, what I probably like most about it is that it attempts to redeem a character who's done a lot of bad shit. However, it works so well because Clarity really isn't a bad person at all. It's built upon in Hostage in this movie that she was basically forced to do those things and didn't want to do them. Now that Jason's given her more control to do what she wants to do, it turns her into a badass. I'd also go as far to say that it's pretty relatable, since I too have been stuck in a similar situation. I too have also done some iffy stuff, but that doesn't make me a bad person in the end, since I've been able to learn from all that. I'd also like to personally note that I think Jason giving Clarity the self-autonomy she needed was a really good thing. Although I think they probably came from the same background, Smoke is probably the main reason why Clarity couldn't do what she wanted to in the end. Because of the coercion, Clarity lost everything she wanted to do. Because of how she got turned into a killer, she became an outcast and she couldn't do that anymore. And now because she's with Jason, she can, well, change. Because Smoke was such a loyal member of the mob until the very end, she couldn't really get out of it. That's what really makes me resonate with Blind Justice. It's able to turn bad into something good effectively. It shows both that you're able to reflect on the bad things you've done and yet still manage to wonder where all that exactly came from. And sometimes the place it comes from is just a lack of autonomy due to what's been placed onto you. And that's all thanks to the two main characters. Jason and Clarity are easily my favorite duo out of the entire Time Hero cinematic universe, and it shows. You wouldn't really expect them to become friends based on Hostage, and they come from extremely different areas of life, but they still have such a natural chemistry. However, some of the side characters are also really good, like Commissioner Baker. He's just kind of there to be your boss guy, but he's still charming. We also get to see the return of the Kingpin as the central villain, and he's just as great here as he was in Hostage. Here, however, Sebastian is much more able to be an evil presence. It's a film that much more gets to the point. And while it's not critically the best, in my opinion, it's my favorite out of the arc. Even though it's less of a character piece and is much more fast-paced, will it still pack the same punch and kills Hostage had? Let's find out and get to them. The movie begins aboard a train where we meet a young Clarity Rose. Since no one's doing anything on here, might as well strike up a conversation with this guy. In exchange for a nice candy bar, we get to feel each other a bit more. Turns out this Slim Shady looking ass was in the same place as her a bit ago. Because of how intelligent she proved to be with the candy bar thing, he tells her a bit of advice to get ahead in the world. And the best way to get there is with the Kingpin. Wait, no, Clarity, don't ask what his name is! He's gonna try to coerce you to the mob! Damn, Clarity, we're gonna have to give this guy a bit of title card! 3 years later in D-Town, it's proven that the shady advice worked. We continue right off of Hostage, where we see Officer Jones in the hands of Mystic. What she needs from Jones is that he's gonna have to call in a tip and repeat exactly what is said. He decides that you only live once and goes with it. But Officer Jones, the first thing with the mob is that they're just gonna kill you anyways, regardless of what promises they want to make. At his house, Jason is depressed, grieving over his dead wife. However, he gets a call from his new best friend Rico that makes him get up a bit. He's called Jason late, in order to tell him that he's found an update on their case. And because he was grieving and lacked touching grass within the last few months, he really needs to get out there and see him. There's someone else who also wants to meet him, Clarity, and she's in a hotel room scheming some stuff with the building. Even though she's probably gonna get a hefty sum because of it, she still has some issues to worry about. The next morning, Jason and Rico drive to work, on their way to see some crazy things like arrests, trucks filled with gang members, and some aspect ratio shaking protesters. They arrive and meet the commissioner, and Rico tells them that he's found something on the bigwig case. Well, whatever that is can go away, since last night they received a tip from Officer Jones and haven't heard from— okay, dude, I have some bad news. Although the audience know that's Officer Jones who's been killed, they don't know that yet. He just seemingly went missing, so now they have to go south towards the Canadian border to find him. However, those docs they found are also harboring another thing, custom-made weapons. Since this could be their big shot in stopping the weapons sanction of the mob, they order an entire team to go down there. Later that night, they're already down there. And guess what? He's grieving on the job. But damn, my wife also shot in my own house. I get it. Even to this day, he's still been thinking about how it's impacted him. But even then, in spite of that, he's still making a difference around the city. But now we don't have time for that, since the SWAT team has arrived. It seems like they've arrived at the perfect time, since there's some lights on in the building. They breach in and no one's here, which makes it a perfect jackpot. You see, they've arrived at such a perfect time, they're able to turn off the wall collision on this door. However, they've found something dark inside, so now they need Rico and Jason. In an unexpected turn of events, they found a body down there, which Jason recognizes as Officer Jones. With this now being a crime scene, things couldn't possibly get any worse, right? But to Jason, it seems all too convenient with all the barrels and crates loaded around the body. Rico realizes that it's a trap, but it's far too late for anybody else to realize that. Everyone at the docks just gets blown up, and at first it seems like we can't get a succinct count of everybody in there. However, in the scene in a few minutes, we learn that 12 officers lost their lives. That means I'll have to count 11 unnamed officers and Rico, since the paper said that Jason was the only survivor. Very shortly afterwards, it's revealed that Mystic had rigged the docks for that to happen. However, I didn't count Jason as dead because he wakes up inside a hospital. The good news about it is that he's alive, but the bad news is that the explosion caused extreme damage to his retinas. Therefore, he's now permanently blind. However, Mystic doesn't know this information, so she walks into the Kingpin's room to collect her payments. But she's not getting hers right now since she learns that Jason is still alive. She's failed to kill absolutely everyone in that situation, so she's told not to visit him again until he's dead. In Jason's home, he's obviously having a hard time moving around. Hell, when he hears a knock at his door, he's got to use a cane to get there. However, the person at his door, Dr. Roy Frederick, only wants to help him. He's the owner of a company known as the Enagrium Society, which specializes in creating prosthetics that help people. Jason initially turns him down because to him, those are just some crappy fantasy days. Well, Frederick knows what he's been through and gets him hooked by saying he can see again. At first, he's skeptical about it because he believes he's irreversibly blind. But then he's told that his eye receptors can be manipulated given a perfect surgery. Enagrium's on the edge of making history, and given that the animal tests worked, Jason's gonna be their first human test. And because he has a lot of sympathy for the detective, Frederick's giving him a second chance. We cut over to a club where things are bumping. However, unlike in Hostage, I won't have to censor any titties. Hell, even Clarity's here to see what all the fuss is about. That's until she finds someone she's familiar with. Even though they've had a major falling out, she's here for his help. They meet up at midnight where Smoke explains that he's just about done with the mob. She explains to him, however, that since he got her into this shit, she's gotta get him back into this shit. And she's gonna need his help because of one missed target that's gonna save her life. And it's only because of this one thing that's gonna help her, since hell, no one else gives a fuck about them. Well, supposedly, except for Sebastian, but I'm doubting the authenticity on that. And ultimately, he agrees that she has very succinct reasoning. With that, he's just gonna help her a bit along the way, but he's mostly gonna stay out of the entire situation. Speaking about the situation, Jason's hanging out with Frederick at the Enneagram Society itself. One of the real reasons he chose him for this is because he has 2 daughters who the mob tried to recruit. He's deeply disturbed by it because 1, it's the mob, and 2, they're only 12 and 13. And to him, Jason's one of the people who's gotten the closest to stopping them. They then get to the operation, and it seems pretty easy to cure someone's blindness because with one flash of light, he's able to see again. Holy shit, Frederick's not a hack fraud, he's a hero! Damn, shame he's only got a day left to contact other people. That night, Smoke meets up with the Kingpin to take over Clarity's head. The Kingpin accepts his offer of $100,000 if he kills Jason, plus an extra bonus. You see, Smoke, because Clarity couldn't kill Jason, you gotta kill her too. Yep, he's doing some mob unfriendly fire and giving Smoke an extra $100,000 if he's able to kill Mystic. Meanwhile, Clarity, with some weapons and an eviction notice, is playing a hit of her own. She discovers that the Enneagram Society cured Jason's blindness, so now she's gotta add some kills to the count. She grapples and breaks into the building and immediately dispatches the 2 security guards who notice her. Frederick notices the commotion but doesn't really react to it, which allows Clarity to grab a key card. It also allows her to face off with 6 more security guards. 2 is apparently too few, while 6 is apparently too high, so now he reacts to the commotion. Frederick runs to make sure they're okay, but oh shit, they're all dead. Looks like she put her training from the bank heist to good use. While the most bodies we can see here is 5, I'm deciding to count 6 since that's the most I could count earlier. He runs back to his office to see that there's no one there and nothing has happened. Well, no one except Mystic, who just wants to know where Jason Stone went. Frederick's all like, nope, can't help you, man, but that's not good enough for Mystic. He refuses to cooperate with her, so he gets shot in the back. Mystic still wants info from him, but he's not budging just because he doesn't want to associate with her. And because he refused to help her, he gets shot and killed. Damn, she even got blood on the family photo. Hey, wait, is she gonna clean that off? Guess not, because she got the info she needed to sneak into Jason's home. Hell, she's armed and ready, but once she sees pictures of his friend, she decides that it's probably not worth her time. And I guess that judgment call was right, since he wakes up and she's not there anymore. He gets out of bed and decides to watch the news, where we learn that Cassie Green was found dead last night. However, since I'm now choosing to follow standard procedure, I'm not gonna put her on the count just yet. He's still watching when he gets interrupted by Commissioner Baker, who needs to talk to him as soon as possible. He's got wind of Frederick's death, which Jason now just learns about. However, the Commissioner identified the perpetrator as a woman, which leads Jason to turn into the Lorax.
That's a woman?
However, when they discuss about it further, they think that Frederick wasn't the real target all along, but it was actually Jason. Now with Frederick assassinated, he's now got the biggest target of the mob on his back. And after he gives Jason the CCTV footage, he leaves him to his own devices. He watches the footage later that night and has, certain thoughts about it. That causes him, for the first time ever, to go out into the public as Blind Justice. He first meets a group of mobsters in an alleyway to get answers out of them. To get the answers, he beats them all up, but I'm not gonna say he kills them this time because I just think he knocked them out. Now that he's got the main mobster scared, he describes Mystic to him. The mobster tells him that and also tells him that the Kingpin's trying to kill her, but they don't know who the Kingpin is since he only shows his face to the higher-ups. He also gets to know about Smoke, but Mystic is way more important right now. With all the answers he needs, he meets Mystic atop a roof. However, Mystic doesn't fight back against him, saying that she's done with all the bullshit she's gone through. Jason really doesn't listen to it because she killed all his best friends and even blinded him. And worst of all, he thinks it's his own wife who did this. However, nah, as we see in the flashback, she's actually dead, and we'll get more context to that later. Clarity demasks herself and tells Jason that he's a dumbass for thinking this red-headed person could have been his wife. And yes, I know he describes her as having auburn hair just a few minutes ago, but look, that hair is pretty obviously red. Jason wants Clarity to kill him now, but if she wanted to, there would have been 55 kills in hostage. The reason she hasn't killed him yet is because she can relate to him quite a lot, having lost everything in her life. Now that she has the knowledge on how to survive, she wants to join up with Jason because honestly, he's really smart. And both of them also want to stop the Kingpin since he's turned people into killers for no reason and he started a citywide war. And because they're the two people most capable of doing it, they decided to start the best duo in the entire franchise. Alright, so now with Mystic here, Jason's gonna learn a whole lot about how Sebastian Gates is more crooked than he thought. He's got connections all the way in the fucking Philippines, making custom weapons for him and shipping them into Detroit. However, even though we're partners now, Jason still doesn't exactly know if he trusts her, since she did kill a whole bunch of people. However, Jason still believes in her, and plus, she has all the knowledge he needs. He also learns that the Kingpin's just a blood-hungry asshole, and that his wife's death may have been because of all that. One of the ways they can stop Sebastian is bringing in an arrest warrant and the cops, but he'll probably just want to put up a fight, so they'll have to do that too. On top of another goddamn roof, they meet Commissioner Baker and discuss the folder. The information is impressive, but they'll still need evidence, which is behind a vault on the very top floor of the building. There, see, that's all fine and dandy, but how is he pulling all of this off without anyone suspecting it? Like, is he just... Like, there's people gotta be working in that building on, like, a lower floor. So we can't just go, like, up to an upper floor and see what all the fuss is about? No? Okay. Whatever, that vault seems like a pretty weird hiding spot, but then again, the cops have been on his ass so long, he has to put it in the most inconspicuous place possible. However, they'll need backup if they actually want to take him down for good, since he's constructed an entire army. Although she has all this advice, the commissioner is still a bit cautious about it because she's a known criminal. But due to Jason's unrelenting ability for clarity to chance as a person, he goes through with it. The next morning, Jason lets out a little bit of a vent. For a bit there, due to the wife dying and the dock explosion thing, he really had nothing to live for, but because of clarity, he had to open his eyes up a bit. Wait a minute. And also because it's the next morning, the commissioner and the boys are on the way. Meanwhile, Clarity and Jason have teleported to the closest possible point they can enter, but they're still gonna encounter a few gooners. Commissioner Baker's team gets there and orders everybody to immediately get down. As the SWAT team makes their way further inside, Clarity and Jason enter the building. And talk about efficiency, because Clarity immediately shoots this guy's head off with just a single pistol bullet, jeez. Not sure how the bullet physics work like that, but whatever. The duo progress further, but get into a roadblock because of a few mobsters. Without much of a plan, they kill them. Jason gets one down for the count, but Clarity becomes a badass when she does, whatever this is, and shoots two more. Also, when Jason and Clarity look back at the carnage, there's just another random mobster there. I don't know why he's there, but he looks pretty dead, so I'm gonna count him. During all this turmoil, Baker's boys have been climbing the building. That's when they run into an empty room, which means there's gonna be a whole lot of mobsters. During the quite honestly unengaging fight, I'll count 3 kills. One mobster is immediately shot, and then there's this SWAT officer who gets killed. And finally, I'll count this mobster whose arm is seen. While Smoke's trying to find a way out of here, a mobster comes up and tells them that Mystic is coming in and assaulting them. For some reason, the Kingpin immediately knows who he's talking about when he says some guy with a cape. And while the Kingpin stays calm about Clarity's betrayal, Smoke is in disbelief. And then the Kingpin continues monologuing to Smoke even though they're about to die. But even with that risk, he still won't go without a fight. We cut back to the shootout room, now with actual lighting. While they lost 1, the mobsters lost 4 more. The issue is that I can't really tell if these are all new bodies, but I'm gonna count them as such considering I saw about 6 mobsters in that previous scene. So with that in place, I'm gonna go with what I originally counted for this scene all those years ago on count 4. However, even though they were just trying to kill him, the Commissioner Baker has a bit of sympathy for them. So now both him and Jason are closing in on the Kingpin. Bad news for Jason when I have to add 5 more SWAT officers, including one you can just barely see on the side. That means he's gonna be a bit late, but whatever. Or I fucking guess not, since he immediately slaughters the 5 mobsters. With all that said and done, he's basically at the Kingpin's door, which means he's going in. Although communication is jacked up, both Jason and Clarity manage to reach. And then they breach the beach and oh shit. He's got the commissioner held hostage and these two don't really like that. You see, for the past 15 years, the Kingpin's been building this operation up, and since they're trying to stop him, he'll stop them too. It's also at this point where we finally learn the real truth about Jason's wife. Turns out Smoke's the reason Sally's dead, and a flashback gives us that interconnection. The cops are coming since they're trying to rob the house of a fucking police officer, and they decided to shoot Sally just because they wouldn't have any witnesses. His compatriots were obviously like, dude, you're seriously messed up just because she was pregnant, but Smoke wasn't having any of it. Jason's pretty pissed, but he doesn't want to kill Clarity. He just wants to kill Kingpin and Smoke. His proclamation leads into a shootout that gets Clarity down to the ground, and also gets Commissioner Baker out of the Kingpin's hands. Smoke also joins in shooting... Wait, he's dead? Yeah, this is Smoke's actual death. We never see him again. He just gets shot and what the fuck? However, he's not the only one that's about to die in a shitty way here, because the Kingpin does too. He just gets shot a whole bunch by Jason, but with him, it's much more believable, as we have a lot of dialogue indicating it and a body to look at. However, there are pluses to this, as the Commissioner and Clarity are still alive. That's proven when Clarity wakes up inside Jason's home with some painkillers. Because she's still alive, she and Jason can be on another rooftop? Why do they love rooftops so much? Like what, you can't just walk into the nearest alleyway and discuss your plans? You absolutely have to choose a rooftop? But then again, I'm contemplating the choices residents of Detroit make. And that kind of makes me feel like an idiot. Anyways, Jason really didn't need to save her life back there, but he did because they're partners, even after all she did to him. However, because she was able to redeem herself, she's here with him right now. I think it was a strong choice for his ending to touch upon the biggest theme of the movie in my opinion, redemption. Hell, I think she'd be on the count right now if it wasn't for Jason believing in her. Oh, the movie spells that out for me. Okay, so there we have it. The movie ends on them dead set with becoming partners. However, after we discover that Poopy Jaden 56 was an extra, we get a post-credit scene. It's a scene that takes place in Ann Arbor, directly confirming that this movie takes place at the same time as The Renegade. However, Jeremy and Jason's time together will have to wait until Injustice Mortal.
That is insane.
Yes, it is, Lou. Yes, it is. How many people were blind to the justice being served to them on a platter? Let's find out and get to the numbers. 47 people died in blind justice. The victims consisted of 46 men and 1 woman, which gives us this blue justice pie chart. Compared to hostage, blind justice had 7 less kills than it, which is different from what I counted a few years ago. What's not different is Clarity's domination, as she scored 26 kills, and it's actually pretty varied. 14 of her kills were from people being shot, and 12 of them were from people being immolated. As for the rest of the people here, they all shot people. All that starts with Commissioner Baker, who decided to shoot 5 mobsters to save his life. Jason ranks third by shooting 2 people, including the Kingpin. And also, speaking of him, he got 1 kill, Smoke's bullshit-ass death. With a runtime of 95 minutes, that left us with a kill on average of 2.02 minutes. I'll give Amethyst Flamethrower to the dock explosion because while it's not the most graphic, and to be honest, it doesn't look all that great, it is responsible for creating the best duo of the franchise. Broken Pistol will go to Smoke because I don't buy his death. It's utter bullshit to me. And that's it. Blind Justice was released in 2018, and while it's by far not the critically best of the entire arc, I'd say it's my personal favorite due to its relatability. I'll get to the Renegade sometime soon, and for Christmas, you're getting the Velocipaster. Stay tuned. But until then, I'm Chelsea Rose, and this has been The Parody. Thanks a lot for watching this quote-unquote recount of Blind Justice. And also, yes, this is the 4th time I've done this movie, but statistically, for the future, it's going to be the 2nd time. That rhetoric will also reign true for Renegade. And also, you heard me right, we're doing the fucking Velocipaster. Also, 2025 is going to be like a pretty stacked year because I'm going to try releasing one actually every week this time. And there'll also be way more supercuts, which means I'll have more of a break to produce the longer parodies I actually want to do. And Time Heroes Gay is looking almost to be breached, judging by the very first parody of next year. And that's the only clue you're getting, so thanks for watching.